in Varanasi called the International Chandramouli Charitable Trust, where protecting and promoting yoga, Sanatana Dharma, and Bharatiya Samskriti with the Vedas and other Shastras are taught as a way of life. Please welcome Divya Prabha.
Divya Prabhaji, I have a request.
Ji.
Please share your full name because as far as I know that the saintly names have to be pronounced correctly, like Divya Prabhat Ji, not Divya Ji. So I just want that it should be clear to everybody that what is the correct way to address you.
My name is Divya Prabha.
Okay. Divya Prabhat.
And I was just asked if I would be speaking in Hindi. हिंदी बोल सकते हैं लेकिन यहाँ पे अंग्रेजी में बोल देंगे. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I'm saying esteemed guests in front of me to Mary Pranam, Sada Pranam, to Mary Gurugan, and to my brothers and sisters, Pranam. Thank you very much for asking me to come here today after being at the World Hindu Congress in Chicago. There are a few things that I wanted to talk to you about today because, as you've heard, I've had quite a long life already. But I wanted you to understand some of the things that I've learned along the way about Bharatiya Sanskriti, which sometimes when it's in your blood already, you maybe not have seen. I came to, after having had this successful career on Wall Street, I realized that the hands might be full with money, society's respect, property, etc. But when inside you're still feeling empty, this is meaningless. And so my journey really started because I was searching to fill this hole, this sense of emptiness within me, which was filled by the experience of meditation and Sanatana Dharma. So if you'd like to go to the first slide. So really you've all been very blessed to have been born with Bharatiya Sanskriti in your blood. But Bharatiya Sanskriti is so much more than just the culture that you're born in or the country that you're born in. Because like in the Shastras, we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudha, meaning earth, the world. Eva Kutumbakam. So the whole world is your family. And this is a unique facet of Sanatana Dharma. People talk about Hinduism or Hindutva or sometimes calling it a religion, but you've got to remember, Hindu is not a religion. Religions have been founded by certain people with one leader that says that there's this way that you have to follow. But Sanatana Dharma, the eternal truth, has come with an open philosophy, open to all people, of all castes, of all countries, of all colors, without any gender discrimination, without any age discrimination. And sometimes it's really helpful to just consider the vastness, the infiniteness behind the foundation of this culture, which really is a unique culture in the entire universe. And if people understood this philosophy, this culture properly, it would be the culture of the entire world. Because this culture, Sanatana Dharma, Bharatiya Sanskriti, is because of the experiences I've had in life, it is a practical philosophy. It's a practical way of living that gives you peace and happiness in life. Everybody in the world, every single person on this earth wants peace and happiness. There's not a single person that you'll find who says they don't want peace and happiness. But the problem is these days, lots of people think that money is the means to get peace and happiness. But really, Sanatana Dharma has built in ways, if we live that way, we get that peace and happiness automatically. If you'd like to go to the next slide. So what is Bharat? I've been studying Sanskrit for the last 18 years, and I've found some amazing definitions as I've gone along. The first of which is Bhayam Rati Iti Bharatam. For those of you who may not know Sanskrit, Sanskrit has different cases that give you the meanings of prepositions. So Bhayam Rati Iti Bharatam, also in Sanskrit we say Prakashena Yuktaha, means that which is joined by light. So the meaning of the word Bharat itself is, when we look at it grammatically, defining that which is joined by light. This shows that Bharat is more than a country drawn on a map with a specific physical boundary. It refers to the way people live in this culture. It reflects the light of knowledge. It reflects that this is a knowledgeful culture. And it also reflects that Bharat goes with you, not with the land. Because also in the Vedas it says that where Bharat is that place where there is Bharati Sanskriti. And that is called Bharat. Those people are called Bharati. Because Bharati also comes in Sanskrit, meaning that was in you, that asmin asti, Hindi, but it means that quality of light is within you itself. And when then we talk about education, these days education is such an important thing in the world. But if you look at the meaning of the word education, in its Latin root, it comes from educare, educe, to bring out. And then if you trace it back to its Sanskrit roots, you're talking about adhikari. It's really quite amazing how language progresses across the world. So Bharat and that Sanskriti, it's within you and it goes wherever you are. People talk about karma bhumi, punya bhumi, but really that Bharat, it is within you, and wherever you are, it's for you to uncover that quality of yourself and to live that way yourself, rather than what your passport says or where you're actually living. So in an ideal world, we would want to say that the whole universe is Bharat, because this is light, means that you have peace and happiness and the light of knowledge emanating from yourself. If we go on to the next slide, where is your home? The Vedas give us amazing definitions. So I was telling you that Bharat is within you yourself. Atharva Veda tells us Ashta Chakra, Naudwara, Devanam Purayodhya, meaning that you yourself are the dwelling place of the Devatas. Rakshas also. It's up to you what you manifest. And this place is called Ayodhya, and it has 8 chakras and 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, mouth, and the 2 lower organs. So the Vedas tells us that when we close these 9 gates, that is when the 10th gate can open. And it also tells us that a journey in life is an inward journey through the chakras. We take maybe 1,000 lives, some people say thousands of lives. Maybe it's only one life, but the Vedas tell us that the journey is through these 8 chakras. So imagine if you only go from one chakra to the next chakra, we're talking about 7 lives to complete the journey of life. Only 7, but we keep coming round again and again. Because a lot of people think, oh, it's so difficult, they don't know what to do. But the journey is very simple. Veda tells us, go up and go in. So Vedas also tells us, yata pinde tata brahmande. Everything that is in you is in the entire universe. Because ultimately, we're all comprised of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which is in the entire universe. But it's even greater than that, and that is something that we discover when we go through sadhana. So it's really incredibly deep. It's not just about following your daily routine, being busy with your work. If you really take time, maybe just 5 minutes a day, to consider the roots of where you come from, who you are, why you are, which is what the Upanishads and the Vedas have urged us to do, you can uncover that energy within you that removes so many obstacles, because these days, particularly young people, have faced so many competitive challenges in life and not really understanding why we have to go through all these challenges. And really, we don't have to go through these challenges. We certainly have to go through the experience, but the challenge is more to do with our mind and how we face the challenge. And another thing that I wanted you to think about was on the next slide, where all this knowledge comes from. This is the only philosophy that says that it's given by rishis, by the seers. Seeing means that they actually experienced it, where they were one with that knowledge, and then returning from meditation, they announced that knowledge and passed it on from generation to generation and generation. You all know that Nalanda University burnt for 6 entire months. When they burnt the books in Nalanda, it took an entire 6 months to destroy the books, and still the Vedas live on, because of the oral tradition, passing it from one generation to the next generation. And not just passing the Veda in one form, but you have Ganapat, Padapat, so many different ways to reconstruct the mantras of the Vedas. If one, if it's slightly mispronounced or misremembered in one place, another person has remembered the deconstruction of the words to keep it in the correct form. Because I don't know how many of you know the importance of swar when repeating a mantra. There was a Rakshas king who wanted to kill Indra, and he performed the yajna with his pandit to get a son who would kill Indra. But what actually happened, because the pandit mispronounced the samas, he got a son that was killed by Indra. Because in Tatpurush Samas we have second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh Tatpurush. So he mispronounced the swear, creating a different vigraha, splitting of the samas. So it's so powerful, these words, that what it can manifest. If we go into the next slide. And you all identify yourselves, I think you all identify yourselves as a Hindu. But what is a Hindu? There's a beautiful Sanskrit definition of a Hindu, which does not look at place, but says, Hinsayaha duryate yasya hridayam iti sa Hindu. Means that that person by heart, not this heart. Upanishad tells us we have 2 hearts, one here and one here. By this heart, that who stays far from violence, that person is a Hindu. And it's a beautiful, beautiful definition of what this culture is all about. It doesn't mean that you don't defend your culture, but it does mean that you will only act through the intellect to defend your culture, but not with emotion, not with anger, but that path which is right for the Dharma, because it's not a religion, it's Dharma. So there's a beautiful Gita shlok which I think beautifully tells us how the Gita is such a practical book. Dhyayato vishen pumsa sangastishu vijayate sangat sanjayate kamat kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibrahma smriti brahmashada buddhina sho buddhina sharpanashati. This, I think, is a beautiful shloka why it tells us why the Gita is such a brilliant book for our daily life, because this tells us that there's 7 steps to our downfall. First, dhyayato vishayan pumsa, concentrating on the external objects, leads to the upspringing of desire. And that, the very next step, it said, kamat krodho bhavati sammoha. So straight from going from the upspringing. No problem. Going straight from the upspringing of desire, you go straight to krodh, anger. It means that just the very action of concentrating on the external objects leads to desire, and from desire to anger. If you think, I don't know how many people are scientists here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so if you understand, it's like putting a copper wire between the thing that you're concentrating and on yourself, so that energy directly passes a current straight through there, and there's nothing to obstruct it, right? So, and that automatically then leads you from the upspringing desire to anger, and with that anger we get samoha, and from that we forget who we are. When we forget who we are, we destroy our intellect, and the action of the destruction of our intellect leads to our complete and utter destruction. Prakrishta nashta, pranash. So whether you read the Gita, whether you read the Ramayana, whether you read Mahabharata, whether you read the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Vedas, we see a similar message in every single one that is telling us to go in and go up, not to focus on the outside objects. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't see the object. You see the object, but you without the attachment, without that inner connection, and that happens when our energy goes up. If you think about it in terms of yoga, yoga tells us the first 2 steps. Ashtanga yoga says yama niyam, which tells us how to behave in society, how to behave with ourselves, with cleanliness, truthfulness, faith in the supreme consciousness, etc. But the very next step in yoga says stiram sukham asanam, stir sukham asanam. That which is stable and comfortable is an asana. And this is simply preparing us for the next step, pranayama. Why? Because pranayama can also be described as the practice of hatha yoga, means ham uttam, the balancing of the 2 breaths, pranapan, surya chandrama, rajaguna, tamaguna. The balancing of the breath is important because thought and breath are twins. It's very difficult to control your mind through psychology, but it's very easy to control your breath through pranayama. So with these twins, we can control our mind through the practice of balancing our breath. Why is this important? Because it brings our senses under control. Gita goes on to say, Yada samharte chayam kumanganiva salvasha indriyani indriyatebhyas tasya pragya pratishtata. The Gita tells us that there's 4 definitions of a yogi. Now, it doesn't say someone who fully contorts their body. It tells someone that is satisfied by themselves in themselves, that is balanced in the pairs of opposites, whether it's love and hate, hot and cold, etc. But also someone who, like a tortoise, can withdraw their limbs when necessary and let out their limbs as necessary. So whatever practice we follow, whether it's Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, whatever path, everyone's following something, whether it's through knowledge, through the Shastras, whether it's through divine blind love, or whether it's through practice, a physical practice or meditation practice. One thing is sure, that through this practice, like an octopus being lifted from the water, the sense organs become closed. The anubhav, the feeling of the senses, is we are withdrawn from that feeling of the senses. And this is, an amazing practical thing that is in no other philosophy out there. If there's a piece of this, then it has come from this itself. This ancient culture has told us how to remain in control of ourselves, how to uncover that light within ourselves, and how to gain that higher knowledge of that infinite supreme consciousness. Whether we get it in this life or not doesn't matter. But they say dharma artha kama mokshanam purusha chatushtayam. At some point, following the path of dharma, we will progress through the different stages to that liberation, that moksha. So when we do any of these yoga practices, our prana is going up through the chakras, progressing us through that journey into the higher levels where we go beyond the confines of nature, of Sataguna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna. Think about, as well, if we look at Patanjali Yoga Darshan, we get given an amazing analogy of what our intellect is like. We're told our intellect is like a colorless crystal. And as an individual, we have unique combinations of Sataguna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna, right? And it's a unique combination because if it wasn't a unique energy, then we would all look the same, we'd all think the same, we'd all behave the same, but we don't. We all have our individualities defined by these three gunas. So if you imagine this energy of every single person, imagine someone is like red energy, someone else is like blue energy. So we have this colorless crystal, and it's like we're wearing sunglasses of a certain color, red and blue. So when they look at yellow, that person with the red sees orange, that person with the blue sees green. And this is the root cause of most of the problems in the world. Why we misunderstand between countries, within family members, because we have these individual energies defined by the combination of the gunas within ourselves. And that, of course, comes from our Purva-janama sanskara, our energy from before. And so, in this life, we want to polish that colorless crystal so that we get to that clarity where we see the truth as it is. You all know that Einstein met with Tagore, many, many years ago. I think it's amazing that when we get told about E equals mc squared, it always is combined with a picture of a colorless crystal diffracting the light of the rainbow, light of also the chakras also. It really is as simple as getting that colorless crystal. And that's why you see so many people coming from Bharat taking up intellectual posts across the world, because there's this stableness, this level of intellectual capability because of the clarity within that is bringing everyone across the world. And it's not just to be a teacher, but also to spread something of what this culture is, because it is really Vishwa Dharma. It is the thing that can bring everybody to that stage of peace inside, bringing them to that level of harmony where they're not struggling in the world, but simply accepting things as they are and simply doing the best that they can to do going forward. Because this is one of the greatest problems that people face in the world. So I also wanted to let you know what it was that made me study Sanskrit, because I've been studying Sanskrit for now 18 years in India on an official and unofficial basis. And what I found was, in the beginning, when I was studying the Bhagavad Gita, I was learning to read Devanagari. And I would listen to a cassette recording of the shloka, and I would look at Gita Press's Devanagari with the Roman transliteration underneath, and tried to connect the sound with the letter and then through to the Devanagari. And I found that I got such a deep sense of peace without understanding a single word. I literally was just listening and reading. But I found that there was an energy imparted by this Sanskrit that gave such a deep sense of peace that I wondered that if I knew the meanings and if I studied the subject and actually could know what I was reading, then what would I find? So I started studying Sanskrit to get more involved with this energy and also to understand the deep meaning of the Shastras. Because whenever we read anything in any language, there's a superficial meaning and then there's a deep hidden meaning. But the deep hidden meaning of whether it's Gita, Upanishad, even the grammar treatises, even in grammar, we have a line by Patanjali says Eka Shabda Samyaka Pritaha Brahmaloka Mahiyate, means just using one word correctly is enough to take you to Brahmaloka. And this again precisely says, like you said about my name, what is the correct name? It has a Dvani Shakti, Sphot Shakti. There is a Shakti in every single word in your divine language that like polishes you. They say a mantra means mananat trayati iti mantra. Mananat means, in fifth case, from the cogitations of the mind. Trayate protects. Mantra is that which protects you from the cogitations of the mind. So imagine it's like, I think you've all seen a competition skating rink, right? And you see that the skaters, they carve a groove with their boot. And these are our sanskaras. But amazingly, mantra is this thing that comes along like that heating machine that makes it all smooth again. So mantra comes along and it cleans the whole surface, and then you repeat your mantra and it makes a new groove, and it makes a deeper and deeper groove, which protects us from going on the wrong way of thinking, and also removes all the wrong things that were already in there. Really, everything in this philosophy is completely and utterly useful. It will, when you think about what you're doing, even when you don't understand what you're doing, just the simple following of it protects you in every moment from the way you think to what your actions might be. So I wanted to talk to you about that today, to let you know some of the truly magical things that I found by my journey in Bharat, coming from London to New York, back to London to Bharat, and hopefully inspire you to think a little bit more about your culture, that just not I am a Hindu and I go to the temple, but there's really such a deep meaning behind every action that you perform in every place. We all know that modern medicine is 100 and so years old. What did everyone do before? In India, in Bharat, everyone was like, it was normal to live 100 years, right? So what they were doing. I don't know how many of you were born in Bharat, but even the observance of Juta is really, really important. If you think about it on a subtle physics level, you've got your electrons, protons, and neutrons all moving around. They're not limited to this space. My body is not limited to this body. I have three bodies, right? Karan, Sukshma, and Stool Sharir. In the same way, when we've eaten from a plate, the energy of my juice that came from my mouth into my plate, it's not limited to just that small space, but it is moving within that area. And so when it touches another, so you get a conduction pathway and the energy passes. And all of these things that are in your ancient culture really have a deep meaning. I haven't found anything till now that is without meaning. And as you heard before, I founded a Vedic Gurukul in Varanasi, a free project of education for underprivileged kids. And they obviously are very strict about everything they do. And I haven't found a single thing that I scientifically can't justify till now, because I started with a very scientific way of approaching life with my undergraduate and postgraduate. And it's really remarkable when you think about everything. Just think about the very fact that we say that the formless form, when we talk about Paramatma, in English we say the formless form. Well, what does quantum physics say? Quantum physics says that there's this solid matter, but there's this waveform as well. It's formless form. You know, everything that is described in our Shastras, in this philosophy, science is getting closer and closer to describing it in its language. But you already have it inside you, and it's simply to be uncovered. You're blessed to have been born in this culture, and I'm very grateful to you for giving me the chance to speak to you today. I think it's probably time for question and answers.
You can talk.
What would you like to do? Would you like to hear some more? Would you like to ask some questions? What is the time?
6:45.
Oh, there's a clock there. So what would you like to ask? Does anyone have a question?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you described, this whole essence of being and how we are within the universe. In there you mentioned something about you get to choose, your name. For instance, you've chosen your name.
I was given my name.
You were given your name.
Yes.
So could you put your name in the context in which it was given to you? Why was this name given to you?
Probably Guruji would need to say more, but Divya Prabha could be translated as like divine radiance. I'm very lucky that the name I was born with as well was Lucy, which means light. It comes from the Latin meaning. And Guruji, by his divine grace, decided this is my name. In our tradition, we don't talk much about Sampradaya and things like this, because where I come from, we're Ramanandi. But even in 2 years, I probably heard the word Ramanandi once when in my initial training, because the mountain is one, paths are many, and whichever your path is, that's the right path because it's your path. And that's why all the different sampradayas work so perfectly, because everyone, according to their individuality, is not one state of intellect, not one level of understanding. So you've got your nursery and your KG classes, and then you've got your PhD classes. In the same way, a PhD Guruji is not going to be able to do much with the nursery class, but the nursery class also is not going to be able to help the PhD students. So it's a really wonderful inbuilt structure that we have such absolute freedom to find our right way. And so the reason I got onto that is because in our ashram, the male sadhaks are called Anand. They normally have Anand at the end of their name. And the originally female, but of course once you go into yoga and you're not supposed to be female or male anymore, you're supposed to get the balance. That's the Shiv Shakti, the balance within the one person. And we would have the name Prabha or Bharti after our names. Sadly, someone already had been Bharti, Divya Bharti, but I think that I love the resonance, that energy of the word Divya Prabha, because this is also the amazing thing about using the name. Someone's called Krishna, someone's called Shiva, someone's called Ganesha. Whatever your name is, the repeating of that name, calling you, is resonating in you every time. And it's like getting the precise frequency to shatter glass. Enough repetition is going to shatter that ignorance within you. That's why people feel so good just listening to chanting of mantras or listening to bhajans. whatever the thing is that you enjoy. But it's actually mixing with your energy and changing your energy. And that's why ideally with mantra, you want to get to the position of not just sitting down and doing japa. And remember, Gita says that in the yagyas, I am japa. You know, of all the yagyas, I am japa. So japa doesn't mean just sitting down and doing your jap, but it means to have it always with you in every moment, connected with every breath. In the beginning, it's a difficult thing to do, but I think a lot of you may remember when you first learned to ride a bicycle, how difficult it was, how much concentration it required. But once you were competent in, and you had your confidence in riding the bicycle, then you were able to cycle along talking to your friend and do tricks and things on your cycle. And in the same way, when you get practiced in the routine of being regular in japa, say a fixed time, a fixed place, every day, that japa, it goes on here and it, you can say, clarifies your thinking process and ultimately takes you beyond thought, because actually we want to be beyond thought. And that is why Samaved has given us one particular word, Om, A, U, Ma. If we look at it grammatically, the A is in Kantastan, U on the lips, Oshta, and not Ma, but Anga. Every single mantra, whatever mantra you will find, you will always find it has a seed in it, which has this sound in it. And that is the thing that takes it up the nasal passages, crossing the mind, crossing that ocean of consciousness. Again, another amazing inbuilt quality of the Sanskrit mantras. And Samved says it's an udgichat, which means a naturally uplifting sound. So taking you from lower to higher. So Divya Prabha, I think he gave it with the idea that hopefully I would become Divya Prabha. And it is by divine grace to get a name from my guru.
I have a question.
So modern day Bharat
Oh.
has everything that you talked about that Bharat does not stand for. There are divisions among castes, there are divisions on gender basis. So given that dichotomy, that there's such kind of antithesis that is prevailing there, which is against the origin of the name itself, how you find your teachings are in resonance with what is going on in the country?
Well, not everyone, of course, is going to be able to understand what I'm talking about. But I can tell you that, like the children that we have in the Gurukul, they're bright, shining little ray. If I show you the pictures of my kids, a couple of people have seen the pictures of my kids. They're like bright, shining, radiant little balls of light. The thing is, you can't convince a man against his will, because he will be of the same opinion still. But that doesn't mean that we keep quiet and we don't seek to spread the light. We have to keep seeking through practical methods to uncover the knowledge. It's not going to be done overnight, but you'll see that there is a resurgence going on right now, and the wrong ideas that have been building up over many hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years, through all the difficulties that Bharat has gone through, the misrepresentations of the philosophy, the suppression of the philosophy. So it takes time, but because not everyone doesn't understand it right now, doesn't mean that you shouldn't bring it out to the fore. And I find that wherever I go and talk, people are like, wow, yeah, oh my God, yeah, I should have thought about it this way before, thank you so much. So I mean, I'm not going to reach every single person, but I think it's important that all of us as groups allow this energy to come out. And I think that people are starting to realize the depths of the culture because, since independence, it's the first time, that the country is like allowed, blossoming again, It's going to take time for people to find their identity and get back to the roots of the culture because the other cultures have been imposed for such a very, very long time. It's going to take time for people to really allow their identity and the reality to manifest, if that answers your question, but not very much. You want to ask again?
I mean,
I have a question.
I will ask, rather I will allow others to ask because
I'll talk to you
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, my question is on similar on those lines only. Like in Vedas and all, Shivaji is called as Layakaraka, I mean, who controls everything. And even if ant is moving from one place to other, there is a command of Shiva on it. Like today, whatever Hindu philosophy or culture is on self-destruction mode. I mean, people are more westernizing. There are divisions as set by this. There are division in caste. I mean, all the systems have been disoriented or disorganized. So if Shiva was a Laya character, why is this? I mean, this why would he encourage the self-destruction of Hindu Dharma or the Sanatana Dharma?
I wouldn't say that he's encouraging it. It's the nature of nature. The path to destruction is a very easy path, okay? The path to upliftment requires effort and conscious decision, viveka. We have 5 koshas, right? And animals have up to a maximum of 4 koshas. And the 5th kosha is viveka, okay? You also have 5 koshas where you have anandamaya kosh, etc. But the one thing that we have is viveka. Now this vivek allows us to do and not to do. And the very nature of being a purusha is the fact that you have the free choice to decide. And if you want to change the world, you've got to change yourself first. Because it will manifest from you and then spread into your surrounding, and then it will spread into your village, and then into your state, and then into the entire country, and then into the entire world. We can be very busy looking at other people, saying what they're doing wrong and everything. But we should change ourselves first, because we're like a pot of water, right? And there are thousands of different pots of water. There's one sun reflecting thousands of suns. We look at ourselves as different from the next person. But Upanishad's ekatmatvam anupashata, we need to realize that unity and diversity, rather seeing the individuality of that energy of the person in front of us, or the country in front of us, or what other people are doing. But we need to realize that thing that is the same in you and in me. So when you say that Shiva is Agyakara, Layakara, it is this quality of vivek where we have been allowed to freely decide. If you look at animals, if you look at a dog, for example, if a dog is hungry, it will even eat rubbish happily. But when its stomach is full, you can put its favorite meal in front of it and it just sniff it and then it walk on to do something else. But mankind, Purush, Jivatma, if we're hungry, maybe we haven't eaten for an hour, stale morning roti is put on the table. You might look at the clock and say, fresh roti is going to be made in 1 hour. So I'll wait 1 hour and then I can have nice roti and nice sabji. But an animal won't do that. We have the capacity to decide to take or not to take. And when our stomach is full and Mataji comes with some freshly made ladus and she says, Ladu khaoge? You say, okay, mama, Ladu khayenge. And you take a ladu even though your stomach is full, but an animal won't do this. We have the power to decide. And that power of decision can also take us away towards the Rakshas or towards the Devatas. And that is dependent on us. We can't change another person. Only we can change ourselves, and by the example of ourselves and by the energy that emits from ourselves, because my energy isn't limited to this, right? When you look at me, you're seeing something. That's also a food. When you listen to me, you're hearing something. That is also a food. When you think about what I said today, that also is a food going into you. And all of these things go to form the energy at that moment in time. And so it's up to us with our conscious decision making to ensure that we're the best version of ourselves at any one point in time. And that first happens with the control of our breath and with a divine energy joined into that breath. Because if we want to perform divine actions, we must also have that divinity flowing through us. Then we will do divine actions. Because ultimately, we also want to go beyond good actions, because good actions are also binding. We do good and bad actions. Where there's bad, there's going to be good. So good actions also are binding us to this individuality. And we want to expand our consciousness so that we think not just of our own individuality, but of first of our families as a whole, then as our Atma expands, then we're able to think of our communities as a whole, our countries as a whole, and the world as a whole. That's why the very foundation of this is Vishwadharma. But if we want to change other people, we're going to have to do it one at a time by at least being the best versions of ourselves that we can be, and be an example to society of how people will be. And it's the nature of nature that the external objects are so attractive and pulling the young people. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't, after the camera's closed, then I'll say some more. But, you know, there's a lot of reasons behind it, but we shouldn't lose hope. Niraj nahi hona. You know, we've got to, you know, it's up to us. And we're the ones that can change it. We're the warriors of light. When that light manifests from us, then we're a warrior of that light, and it will